Here we have an iPad 9.7-inch iPad Pro that came in for repair. We already disassembled the board, as you can see here, and the board has a couple of issues. The customer said that he replaced the battery, and as a result, the tablet does power on now, but it reboots every 5 minutes. And he also noticed that the iPad is not charging beyond 60%. So he left it overnight, and the iPad did not charge over 60%. Now, the first thing that I did was I used a TriStar tester. I'm using this board here to test and see if the U2 charging IC is good. And it turns out that we have a bad TriStar chip, or possibly a bad TriStar chip. I do not believe that the charging Flux cable is the problem. So we're going to assume the U2 charging IC is bad. And I also noticed the battery connector on the back is also damaged. The customer attempted to replace the battery, and as a result, look at what happened. The customer damaged the battery connector on the back. 1, 2, 3 pins. This one is good, this one is good, but we have 3 bad pins on the battery connector. Right now, I'm using this board to test for a faulty TriStar, and you can find this board on our site. Just log into NorthridgeFix.com. You can search for it or just click on shop. If we place a red probe on ground, right here, we should read around 0.749 on all the pins except for pin number 5, which is around 0.5 voltage drop in diode mode. So I have my meter in diode mode. If we do this, I'm reading 0.745, which is good. We go here, 0.745. We go here, and we are reading nothing. We should read about the same value, but we are reading nothing. Number 5 should be around 0.5, and I'm reading 0.52, 0.746, and 0.746. Now, I have another board on my bench here. I have a 12.9 iPad Pro board here. Let's test and compare. If we plug the TriStar board onto this iPad, so we can compare values. Meter in diode mode, red probe on 8. Let's start with this one, 0.746, exactly the same as the iPad Pro 9.7 that we are working on. If we measure number 5, we should get about 0.5, 0.512, 0.516. We got 0.522 on the other one. And let's measure pin number 3. We should get about the same, 0.746. Yes, 0.745. And here on the other one, we did not get any readings. But if we check here, we are getting 0.801. And then 0.743. And finally, the last pin here, 0.743. So we can see that we have a problem with the iPad Pro 9.7, the one that we are working on. And I was quickly able to tell that we have a problem with TriStar by just checking values on this tiny board. Now, to confirm that TriStar is bad, we have a TriStar tester here. You do not really need it. You can just do it with the board, a lot cheaper. But if we did plug in that tester and we press test, you're going to see that the tester is going to give a fail. You can tell it's going to give a fail because it's taken a while to complete. Usually if it's a pass, the board tester is giving a pass now. It gave a fail before. More than 3 times. We tried it, it gave a fail. Now it's given a pass. Even though the board clearly shows that we have a problem on pin number 4, the tester just gave us a pass. I have another iPad Pro here. That's an iPad Pro 10.5. Let me test the board on this one to compare values. Because right now I'm lost if TriStar is good or TriStar is not good. I mentioned it many times before that you cannot always trust this tool. You have to go by your measurements. Right now the board is giving me a bad measurement, but this tool is giving me a pass, even though this tool gave me a fail 3 times in a row. Right now it's given a pass because I'm recording a video. 0.746, which is exactly as the other 2 boards that we tested. Same thing should be on number 3, 0.746. We got 0.512. This one's given 0.590, which is a little bit high. But let's check for 0.821. The other one is not giving us any readings on pin number 4. So 0.743 and 0.744. So you can see that measuring the 12.9 and the 10.5 gave us a value of 0.8 on pin number 4, but that's not the case for the 9.7 that we are working on. So today we're not going to trust this tool here, even though it gave us a fail before. Now it's given a pass. I'm going to trust this $5 board. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So why should I trust this blue tool that I have? I take it into consideration, but I do not trust it 100%. Let's go ahead and replace TriStar, and we're going to replace the battery connector. Our TriStar chip is right over here. That tiny microscopic chip. That's a very small chip. And pin number 1 is on the bottom left. And if I want to remember where pin number 1 is, we can use this marker, and I can mark on this capacitor just a dot, or a dot here. So we know that pin number 1 is on the bottom. What if I got confused and thought that this meant pin number 1 on top? No, because it's closer to this line here. Right now I'm just applying leaded solder so we can mix it with unleaded. That will make the wicking process or cleaning a lot easier. And we're gonna get rid of the glare just like that. And people are asking, how do you get rid of the glare? I'm gonna make a separate video on that very soon. I'm not using a polarizer. And we're going to be using our signature technique, the wick and hot tweezers. I discovered this technique back in 2019. You can watch the video. It was a trial and error thing, and I've been using this technique since. And look at that, every single pad is clean, beautiful. Now we also cleaned the marking that we put. No, right here. But I know where pin number 1 should be. Right next to those two caps and this cap here. They make a 90-degree angle. That's how I always remember. Let's add some flux. And let's see, did that chip make a connection? And yes, it did. Now we're going to reflow. We're going to reflow by applying heat from far, and then we're going to slowly go down until we see that chip move in place, if it's not already perfectly in place. Let me increase airspeed. Right there. Yes. Good. And we're done here. Let's wait until the board cools down a bit, and then we're gonna measure again using this board and see what we got. All right, so before we clean, let's just quickly measure and see what readings we got. Ground on pin number 8, meter and diode mode, 0.720. Before it gave 0.743. The board is probably hot, and that's why the reading may be a little bit different. But let's check rest of the pins. Number 5 should be around 0.5. It's given 0.525. And we should get the same reading of 0.721. So the value is starting to go up because the board is cooling down a bit. And I'm still getting a no reading on pin number 4. I do not know if iPad Pro 9.7 is like that, where we're not supposed to get a reading here. That's why when you are using this board, you have to write down the values of measuring a good working similar iPad so you can compare. Right now, I do not have the numbers written down, but I did measure 12.9 and 10.5, and we are getting a value on 4. But on iPad 9.7, iPad Pro 9.7, I did not get a reading before, and I did not get a reading now, unless we also have a problem with our Flux cable, which I highly doubt. Right now, we did change the TriStar chip, and we're gonna assume everything is good. And of course, we're gonna charge it 100%, and we'll see. It's very possible that the board is not charging because of a bad battery connector. That's very possible because you have the fuel gauge on one of the pins on the battery connector, and those can cause the battery not to charge because the battery is not able to communicate with the motherboard, and the motherboard does not know if that battery is 100% charged, 90% charged, 60% charged. So these are data lines that communicate with the motherboard. So maybe that was the problem to begin with. But I took the step of replacing the TriStar chip because we got no readings on pin number 4. And we got a fail on our TriStar tester, which later on showed the pass. I don't know, who knows? We replaced the chip anyway. And now we're gonna replace this connector. Sometimes you just cannot get direct answers, so you have to take a shot in the dark. What did I lose replacing the TriStar chip? Just a little bit of time, which is fine. I want this tablet to work, and we want to mail it back to the customer. If I want to take the time to think, is it the TriStar or is it not the TriStar? Is it the charging cable or not the charging cable? Is it the charging flex or not? It will probably take more time than replacing the chip. So we just got that off our back. We changed the chip. Whether the chip was really the problem or not, who knows? But we did it. So let's focus on the battery connector. We're gonna desolder the connector. And of course the pads are not showing. We have a pad here, we have 3 here, we have 3 here, and we have 1 here. We're gonna have to remove this in order to expose the pads under. Right there, that's one of them. And for this, we're gonna use low melt solder. And just a tiny bit of low melt solder goes a long way. Let's apply some more here. I secured the board in a way where we do not have anything under it. So right now what I'm going to do is just apply a tiny bit of hot air, not a lot, and you will see the connector coming out by itself. Watch this. Watch how low melt already liquefied with just the slightest heat. And look at this. The connector is out. Done. Let me grab a bigger tip, because bigger tip means more heat transfer. We were able to do it for those tiny ones, but the big one, the bigger tip is preferable. Watch this. See? And we're good. Let's make sure all the holes are empty. Beautiful. And we're gonna put the connector under the board and lay it flat down on the bench. Like so. We're gonna apply Flux. So we secured this one. And we need more solder. All right, so I can let go now because the connector is secured. We're gonna apply more Flux. And I'm gonna get my bigger tip. All right, beautiful. Job is done. I'm gonna give it a big bus to reassemble and test, and I'll be back in about maybe 1-2 hours so we can make sure the battery charged at 100%. We reassembled the tablet and the tablet is charged at 100%. We can verify this by plugging the charging cable, and we should see a logo with a 100% charge. And the tablet did not reboot every few minutes like what the customer said, and that's because we replaced the battery connector and the TriStar charging IC. So we're gonna invoice and mail this back to the customer. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and don't forget to check out our forums at NorthridgeFix.com. You can ask your questions there as well, and I will try to answer you whenever I have time. And we have a lot of smart people on the forum that may be able to help you out and answer your questions. That's it. I will see you again in the next video.